The sky above Valera Prime was a storm of red and orange, the sun hidden behind thick clouds of ash that rose from endless fires below. Once a planet of beauty and peace, Valera Prime was now a ruin. Cities that had gleamed with silver towers and glass spires lay shattered. Smoke twisted through the broken streets, and the distant cries of surviving citizens echoed across the wastelands. Among the ruins, a young alien woman moved with careful steps. Her skin shimmered faintly, silver blue in the dim light, her long hair a cascade of deep violet. Her name was Lyria. She was the last princess of her people, the sole heir of a once mighty empire now torn apart by greed, betrayal, and war. Every step she took reminded her of what she had lost. Her family, her people, and her home all gone. She crouched behind a fallen spire, listening. The distant pounding of boots and the low hum of energy weapons told her she was being hunted. Mercenaries, scavengers, and rival factions had learned of her survival. They saw her as a prize, a symbol they could use to claim power over what remained of her planet. She closed her eyes, breathing slowly, trying to calm the fear that threatened to overwhelm her. But fear alone would not save her. Only cunning, courage, and perhaps. Looked out far above the planet. The hum of an approaching ship cut through the haze of ash. A sleek human scout vessel glided silently through the sky, its hull reflecting the fiery light of the dying sun. Inside, Captain Elias surveyed the chaos below. He was tall, with a firm jaw and eyes that missed nothing. His uniform was simple but practical, designed for both command and action, scanning the surface. Elias said, his voice steady, "I detect unusual energy signatures in the central city ruins. They're faint, but they're alive." The crew glanced at each other. None spoke, knowing the unspoken truth. Valera Prime was dangerous. Few humans dared approach, and even fewer return. "Prepare for landing," Elias ordered. "We're not leaving without answers." That signal may be the last hope for someone still alive. As the human ship descended through the thick clouds, Lyria watched from the shadows. She had learned to recognize the ships of different species in the galaxy. These were humans. She had never seen them close before, but tales of their strange strength and boldness had reached her ears. Even now, she wondered, were they friend or foe? The humans touched down on the ruined plaza with surprising grace. Their technology hummed softly, shields shimmering as they deployed. A small team disembarked, led by Elias. They moved cautiously, scanning the area for threats. Lyria's heart pounded. Every instinct screamed to flee, but curiosity held her in place. The humans moved differently from the alien hunters she knew. They were organized, calm, and precise. Unlike her own people, who fought for dominance and power, humans seemed to move with purpose, but without cruelty. Suddenly, the sound of a collapsing structure behind her made her freeze. She turned, seeing a group of mercenaries moving closer, their weapons raised. They had found her. Panic surged through her, but she forced herself to think. She could not outrun them in an open fight. Not today. Not alone. Elias noticed the mercenaries first. Movement detected. "They're not alone," he said. His crew readied their defensive positions. Humans were not the fastest, but they had a reputation for strategy and courage. They had survived in environments where stronger, faster species had failed. Lyria's eyes widened as energy blasts illuminated the plaza. Humans and mercenaries clashed. Humans moved with speed and coordination she had never seen. They didn't just react, they anticipated, flanking their enemies, using the environment to their advantage. Despite being outnumbered, they held their ground. Elias spotted her then. She was small, cornered, and clearly unarmed. Yet even in fear, she held herself with dignity. His instincts told him that this was no ordinary refugee. "Move carefully," Elias whispered to his team. "She's not a threat yet. Get her out of there." Lyria saw him, a tall human with calm, determined eyes, stepping between her and the danger. She wanted to flee, to hide, but something in his stance reassured her. He was not like the others who had sought her. He was different. One of the mercenaries lunged at her, weapon blazing. A human soldier shot a precise energy bolt, knocking the attacker back. Another mercenary tried to flank her, but Elias moved faster, disarming the threat with a swift strike. The humans formed a protective circle around Lyria, pushing the attackers back. For a moment, Lyria simply stared. She had never seen a display like this. Her people were brave, yes, but their bravery was often reckless. Humans fought with a mixture of skill, strategy, and compassion. They risked themselves not for glory, but for the protection of another. The remaining mercenaries fled into the shadows. Silence returned to the plaza, broken only by the crackle of distant fires. Lyria's chest heaved as she caught her breath. Elias extended a hand. "You're safe now," he said. "I'm Elias. We're here to help." Lyria hesitated. Pride and fear warred within her. Could she trust these humans? Could she trust him? Her survival had depended on her instincts for years, and instincts rarely included trust. I am Lyria," she said finally, her voice soft but clear. "Princess of Villera Prime, the last of my line." Elias nodded respectfully. "I understand, and we'll make sure you stay safe." For a moment, Lyria allowed herself to hope. Hope that perhaps humans were different, that perhaps someone could care about her survival without expecting power or loyalty in return. But there was no time to dwell. The ground shook suddenly, and Lyria's heart sank. More enemies approached, drawn by the chaos. Elias glanced at her. "We need to move now." The humans formed a protective escort, moving through the ruined city with precision. Lyria followed, unarmed but shielded by their skill. She could see their efficiency, the way they communicated with gestures, the way each move was calculated, the way they anticipated danger. Hours passed in tense silence as they navigated the wasteland. Occasionally, Lyria dared a glance at Elias. He never wavered, never faltered, and never asked for anything in return. Even when faced with overwhelming danger, he remained calm. Finally, they reached a hidden cave, shielded by rock formations and energy fields. Lyria sank to the ground, exhausted. She had never imagined she would find such protection. Elias knelt beside her. "You're safe for now," he said gently. "But the world outside isn't done with you yet. Your journey isn't over. You have to trust us if you want to survive." Lyria looked at him, and for the first time in years, she felt a small spark of trust. She nodded slowly, uncertain, but willing to take a chance. Above them, the sky remained red and fiery, a reminder that danger still waited. But inside that cave, surrounded by humans, Lyria felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps survival was not just about running or hiding. Perhaps it was also about allies, courage, and choices made in the face of impossible odds. And for Elias, the human captain, the choice he had made to intervene for this alien princess was only the beginning. He had no way of knowing that the decision would change not only her life, but the course of events across the stars. As the firelit sky raged above, two very different worlds had collided, and neither would ever be the same. The hidden cave was quiet, except for the soft hum of human technology and the occasional crackle of distant fires outside. Lyria sat on a smooth rock, her eyes fixed on the entrance. She could feel the weight of her title, her responsibility, and her solitude pressing down on her. Being the last princess of her people was not a title she wanted, it was a burden she had carried since childhood. Captain Elias moved carefully around the cave, checking the security measures and scanning for any signs of approaching danger. His team worked efficiently, setting up temporary shields and monitoring systems that kept the cave concealed from enemy sensors. Humans were patient, methodical, and disciplined, qualities that amazed Lyria in her world. Even the most skilled leaders often relied on brute strength or fear to command. Elias relied on something different: intelligence, foresight, and empathy. "You rest," Elias said finally, turning to her. "I'll keep watch. I cannot sleep," Lyria replied. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "Even for a moment, my enemies may strike." Elias shook his head gently. "You will need strength for what comes next. Even the strongest cannot survive if they are exhausted." He gestured to a small device on the ground. "This will help. Food and water. We can't do much more here, but you need to regain your energy." Lyria hesitated, but took the device. The warmth of the nutrient pack surprised her. Humans were not only clever in battle, they also thought about recovery, preparation, and care. She remembered the hunters who had chased her earlier, who had shown no concern for their own lives or for others. Humans were different, and that difference both fascinated and unsettled her. Hours passed. The red glow outside faded slightly as the ash storm diminished. Lyria tried to focus, to rest, but her mind kept returning to the events of the past days, the loss of her family, the destruction of her empire, and now the humans who had saved her. She wanted to trust them, but trust was dangerous. She had learned that even those who seemed kind could betray when it suited them. Elias approached her once more. "Lyria," he said softly, "we need to talk. About your situation, your people, and what comes next." She looked up, wary. "What is there to say? My world is gone. My people are scattered. I am nothing." "You are not nothing," Elias said firmly. "You are the last of a proud people, and that makes you valuable not for power, but for the hope you carry. You survived when so many fell. That means something." Lyria frowned. "Hope? Does hope win wars? Hope rebuilds cities. Hope stops my enemies from taking what remains of my people." Elias sat beside her. "Not by itself, but hope, combined with action, can change everything. That is why humans fight. We fight not because we are the strongest, but because we believe that the right choice matters even when it is difficult, even when it seems impossible." Lyria studied him carefully. Humans spoke of choices, honor, and courage as if they were weapons. Her people had valued strength, lineage, and strategy, but rarely had they spoken of morality in battle. Humans were different, and perhaps, she thought, that difference could be the key to survival. Their discussion was interrupted by a sudden alert. The sensors indicated movement far above the cave. Another group of mercenaries had arrived, and their numbers were greater than before. Lyria's heart sank. She knew that if she were captured again, it would mean the end of her life and the final chance to preserve her people's legacy. Elias rose, his expression calm but determined. "We have two options," he said, looking at her. "We can stay here and try to defend the cave, but they will overwhelm us. Or we can leave and try to escape to the human ship, where we can regroup and fight back on our terms." Lyria's mind raced. Staying meant a near certain battle with the enemy and the possibility of death. Leaving meant trusting humans completely, venturing into unknown territory, and depending on beings she barely knew. Both choices were risky. "What will you do?" she asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. Elias met her gaze. "I will protect you," he said simply, "but that protection may put others at risk. I cannot ignore the lives of my team or other humans in this galaxy. I have to make a choice that may seem impossible, and I need you to understand that your trust is part of that choice." Lyria felt a strange weight settle in her chest. Humans spoke of impossible choices with a calm certainty she had never known. Her people had often faced choices between power and pride, survival and glory. But Elias spoke of choices that involved morality, responsibility, and sacrifice. Could she trust that he would do what was right? Could she allow herself to rely on him? The decision was made for them. Enemy fire began to rain from above, energy bolts scorching the rocks near the cave entrance. The humans reacted immediately, setting up defensive shields and returning fire with precision. Lyria was pulled back as Elias and his team formed a protective barrier around her. She had never seen such coordinated effort. Humans fought not for dominance, not for revenge, but for protection. "Move quickly," Elias commanded. "Follow us and stay behind the shields." Lyria obeyed, though fear twisted her stomach. She had been chased, trapped, and nearly killed so many times that instinct told her to flee on her own. Yet she trusted him, and as she ran behind the humans, she realized that this trust was not just survival, it was something new, something she had never felt before. Hope. The path to the human ship was treacherous. Debris blocked their way, and enemy patrols were everywhere. Elias used his knowledge of tactics to guide them, finding hidden routes, using shadows and cover, and anticipating enemy movements. Lyria marveled at the humans' skill. They were not invincible, but they were clever, adaptive, and brave in ways her people rarely were. During a brief pause in a ruined corridor, Lyria finally spoke. "Why do you risk yourself for me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias looked at her with steady eyes. "Because it is right," he said. "Because you deserve a chance. Because humans fight not just for ourselves, but for others who cannot fight alone. That is who we are. That is what makes us." Human Lyria's heart raced. She had never heard such a thing. Not in speeches, not in her royal teachings, not even from her advisors. Humans fought for honor, for morality, for protection. And now, she was experiencing it firsthand. Hours passed as they moved through the city ruins. Each step brought new challenges, collapsing buildings, treacherous chasms, and enemy patrols. But the humans adapted. They used traps, misdirection, and ingenuity to keep Lyria safe. Each time she saw them act, her respect grew. Humans were not the strongest species, nor the fastest. But they had something far greater, courage guided by conscience. Finally, they reached the outskirts, where the human ship awaited. Lyria looked at it with awe, sleek, shining, and unarmed only to those who approached in peace. It was a symbol of the human skill and vision. She realized that she had never seen technology used in such harmony with strategy and ethics. Elias led her aboard, and the ship lifted off before the mercenaries could reach them. As they rose into the sky, leaving the burning planet below, Lyria allowed herself to breathe. For the first time in months, she felt safe. But safety was not enough. She knew the enemy would not stop, that her people's future still hung in the balance. And she also understood that Elias had made a choice, an impossible choice to save her, risking his team and possibly the lives of many humans. That choice would weigh on him, as her trust weighed on her. She looked at him. "You chose to protect me, even knowing the cost," she said softly. Elias nodded. "Yes, and there will be more choices ahead. Difficult choices. Choices that may define the future of your people and perhaps even more." Lyria's mind swirled. The last princess of a fallen empire, saved by humans who fought not for power, but for what was right. Her heart told her to trust, but her mind whispered caution. The impossible choice had been made, but the consequences were far from clear. As the ship soared through the clouds, leaving the ash and fire of Veliera Prime behind, Lyria realized something important. She was no longer alone, and the human who had risked everything for her was no ordinary ally. He was a symbol of what humanity could achieve: bravery, wisdom, and sacrifice in the face of impossible odds. The journey had just begun, and the choices to come would challenge both of them in ways neither could yet imagine. The human ship glided silently through the upper atmosphere of Veliera Prime, leaving the burning ruins of Lyria's homeworld behind. Inside, the air smelled faintly of ozone and machinery, a stark contrast to the smoke and ash outside. Lyria sat quietly, her hands clasped, watching the stars through the reinforced windows. She felt a strange mixture of relief and unease. Her home was gone, yet she had survived. And it was because of humans, because of Elias. Elias noticed her silent observation. He had spent decades encountering strange worlds and alien species. But there was something different about Lyria. She carried a dignity that commanded respect. Yet there was fear in her eyes, not just of enemies, but of trusting someone entirely. "You're quiet," Elias said gently. "Thinking about everything that happened?" Lyria nodded. "I keep wondering, why? Why would your people risk yourselves for me? For someone who is insignificant in the galaxy now?" Elias shook his head. "You are not insignificant. You carry the last hope of your people. And humans, we fight for more than ourselves. We fight for what is right, for those who cannot defend themselves, and sometimes, for those who don't even know how to ask for help." Lyria studied him carefully. She had always thought that survival depended on power, skill, and cunning. Yet Elias spoke of something deeper: morality, courage, and sacrifice. Humans were not just fighters, they were protectors. That realization stirred something within her, a flicker of trust she had not allowed herself to feel for years. As the ship left the planet's atmosphere, a warning signal sounded. A scout drone had detected movement near their projected course. Lyria's heart tightened. Are they following us? She asked. Elias examined the readouts. Possibly. Valeera Prime is full of opportunists now, and your enemies are clever. But they won't catch us if we stay smart and careful. He gestured to the control panel. We have options. We can take a longer route through the asteroid belt. It's riskier in space, but safer from detection. Lyria's lips parted slightly. She had spent her life navigating dangerous situations. Yet she had never seen humans think so quickly, so strategically. They didn't just react, they anticipated. The ship shifted course toward the asteroid belt, weaving through the floating rocks with remarkable precision. Lyria clung to the railing, gripping it tightly as the ship rocked. This is incredible, she admitted. You move like the asteroids are part of the ship. Elias smiled slightly. We've trained for it. Humans are good at turning challenges into opportunities. You'll see this is only the beginning. For ours, they navigated the belt. Lyria began to speak, cautiously at first, about her life before the war. She spoke of the palace gardens, of her parents, and the council of elders who had ruled with wisdom and sometimes cruelty. She spoke of the fear she had felt as her empire crumbled, and of the loneliness of being the last. Elias listened without interrupting. He asked questions, but only when she was ready to answer. There was no judgment in his tone, no pressure, only genuine interest. For the first time in years, Lyria felt that someone truly wanted to understand her, not to manipulate her, not to claim her title, but simply to know who she was. As night fell, the ship's lights dimmed to conserve energy. The stars outside seemed endless, a reminder of the vastness of space and the smallness of her own fears. Yet Lyria also realized that in this vast galaxy, humans were a force unlike any she had known. They were not the strongest species, nor the fastest, nor the most numerous, but they were relentless in courage, unwavering in morality, and unafraid of impossible challenges. Suddenly, a warning signal blared. Lyria's eyes widened as she saw holographic projections of several enemy ships approaching. Her pulse quickened. They found us, she whispered. Elias moved swiftly, issuing commands. Defensive formation, activate shields, prepare evasive maneuvers. His crew responded instantly, their efficiency a symphony of training and coordination. Lyria watched, amazed. Humans did not panic. They analyzed, adapted, and acted, turning potential disaster into calculated action. The enemy ships opened fire, energy blasts streaking past the human vessel. Elias and his team maneuvered through the asteroid belt, dodging attacks while returning fire. Lyria's stomach twisted with fear, but she stayed close to the humans, learning from their composure and focus. During a brief pause behind a large asteroid, Lyria spoke. Why do you risk yourselves so freely? These people want to kill me. They could kill you too. Why intervene? Elias's expression was serious. Because it's right. Because the life of one being, any being, matters. Because humans fight not for gain, but because we believe that protecting the innocent is worth the risk. That belief drives us, even when it seems impossible. Lyria felt a deep respect growing within her. Her people had rules of honor, yes, but often they were tied to power or influence. Humans acted from principle, from a belief that some things were more important than fear or death. She had never imagined such courage existed in the galaxy. The battle continued. Weaving through asteroids, lasers flashing, the ship rocking violently. Lyria watched as humans adapted to every new challenge, covering each other, protecting her, and using every advantage the terrain offered. Their determination was breathtaking. Despite the odds, they refused to surrender or retreat unnecessarily. Hours later, the enemy ships retreated, damaged but not destroyed. Lyria's heart finally slowed. She looked at Elias, who was calm, though exhausted. You saved me again, she said softly. Even when the odds were against you? Elias nodded. We all make choices. Some are easier than others. Some are impossible. But the right choice doesn't always come with certainty. It comes with courage and commitment. For the first time, Lyria understood what he meant by an impossible choice. It was not simply a matter of survival. It was a matter of risking everything, of putting oneself in danger for the sake of another. even when there was no guarantee of success. She realized that Elias had done exactly that twice now and would likely do it again. In the quiet that followed, Lyria felt a bond forming not just with Elias, but with humanity itself. These were beings who would fight for honor, morality, and the lives of others, even when their own lives were at stake. And she was beginning to see that perhaps she could trust them, perhaps even rely on them to help rebuild what her people had lost. The ship finally reached a hidden human outpost on a distant asteroid. The base was small but secure, equipped with repair docks, living quarters, and defensive shields. Lyria stepped onto solid ground for the first time in days, feeling the difference between her ruined planet and the organized, safe environment humans had created. Elias gestured to the outpost. "We'll rest here. You need to regain strength, and we need to plan our next move. Your enemies are still out there, and we cannot afford to underestimate them." Lyria looked around. The humans moved with efficiency and focus, yet they also shared quiet moments of camaraderie. They laughed softly, shared meals, and tended to each other's wounds. It was a strange mix of discipline and warmth, of strength and compassion. She had never seen anything like it. I don't know if I can ever repay you," Lyria said, her voice uncertain. Elias shook his head. "You don't have to. This is not about repayment. It's about doing what is right, about making choices that matter, about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. That is the measure of who we are." Lyria studied him carefully, realizing that every word, every action, every decision Elias made was guided by principle. He had risked everything for her, not for gain, not for glory, but because it was the right thing to do. She felt a strange mix of gratitude, admiration, and something deeper, a bond that could grow stronger as they faced future dangers together. As night fell across the asteroid, Lyria allowed herself to rest. For the first time in months, she felt a small spark of hope, not just for survival, but for the possibility of rebuilding her life, her people, and even a new alliance with humans. She knew the journey ahead would be difficult, filled with danger and impossible choices. But for the first time, she felt that she was not alone. And Elias? He knew that the battles ahead would test them both physically, strategically, and morally. But he also knew that humans had something unique, the ability to face the impossible, guided not only by skill, but by courage, morality, and the will to protect others. And that strength, he realized, might just change the course of the galaxy. The human outpost on the asteroid was quiet, but the tension was thick. Lyria walked through the dimly lit corridors, her eyes scanning every shadow. The sounds of the human crew moving about, repairing the ship and monitoring communications, were comforting, yet reminded her of the dangers that still lurked beyond the asteroid belt. Her enemies were clever, persistent, and relentless. There would be no peace until the threat was neutralized. Elias stood in the command center, reviewing tactical data. The enemy fleet was large, far larger than anything the humans had faced in this sector. Lyria's enemies had allied with several mercenary factions, each motivated by greed and power. Alone, the humans could not simply overpower them. But Elias was not human in the ordinary sense. He did not rely solely on strength. He relied on intelligence, strategy, and the ability to turn impossible situations into victories. "We have to act quickly," Elias said, turning to Lyria. "Your people are scattered across this system. If we wait too long, they could be captured or destroyed. But we cannot simply attack blindly. They will overwhelm us." Lyria's violet eyes narrowed. "Then what do we do?" Elias's gaze was steady. "We fight smart. We use our environment, our knowledge, and our technology to our advantage. And we act as one. Humans fight not for themselves alone, but for the greater good. You will see what I mean soon." The plan was risky, perhaps reckless by ordinary standards, but it had been devised with precision. The human crew would divide into teams, one to lure the enemy fleet into the asteroid field, another to sabotage their communications, and a third, led by Elias, to rescue any of Lyria's remaining people and secure critical positions. It was a plan that relied on timing, trust, and flawless execution. Failure meant not only death for the humans, but the annihilation of what remained of Lyria's people. As the ship moved into position, Lyria felt her pulse quicken. She had faced danger before, but nothing like this. Entire fleets, advanced weaponry, and ruthless enemies lay ahead. Yet she felt a strange calm. Elias had a plan, and the humans were capable of executing it. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that victory, however improbable, was possible. The first signs of the enemy appeared as tiny blips on the sensors. Their fleet was large, bristling with energy weapons and fast attack ships. Lyria felt a chill, but Elias's calm demeanor steadied her. Remember, he said to his crew and to Lyria, "We are not here to fight recklessly. We are here to outthink them. Every move counts. Protect each other. Trust each other. Trust the plan." The first phase began. A small human team moved ahead, drawing the enemy into the asteroid field. The enemy ships pursued, confident in their speed and firepower. But humans had calculated every angle. The asteroids were dense and treacherous, forcing the enemy to navigate carefully. Explosive traps hidden among the rocks disoriented them. Forcing them to slow their advance, Lyria watched from the human command ship, awed by the precision and patience of the humans. They did not panic, even as enemy lasers streaked past. Instead, they adapted, repositioned, and used the terrain to their advantage. Each move demonstrated the core of humanity, courage guided by intelligence. Next, Elias's team deployed through small shuttles to infiltrate enemy ships and disable communications. Lyria accompanied them, feeling the weight of the mission and the responsibility she carried as the last princess. She was no longer a passive observer. Her presence and guidance were essential. Inside one of the enemy ships, Lyria marveled at the humans' ability to coordinate. Each member had a role, each action synchronized with the others. They moved with purpose, silent but deadly in their precision. Lyria's fears began to give way to admiration. Humans were not the strongest in raw power, but they were unmatched in strategy, teamwork, and moral determination. "Stay close," Elias whispered to her as they navigated a narrow corridor. "Trust your instincts, but follow the plan. We only get one chance to do this right." They planted sabotage devices, disabling enemy communications and navigation. Explosions rocked the ship, but humans and Lyria moved swiftly, escaping before the chaos could trap them. Each step of the plan worked like clockwork, a testament to human ingenuity and discipline. Meanwhile, the main human fleet lured the enemy deeper into the asteroid field. The enemy ships were frustrated, disoriented, and trapped. They had expected a straightforward battle, but humans never fought in straightforward ways. The environment became a weapon, the humans' coordination of force that no brute power could match. Elias and Lyria returned to the command ship to witness the final stage. The human crew executed precision strikes, disabling key enemy vessels while rescuing Lyria's remaining people. Families, small communities, and scholars, all those who had survived, were taken aboard human shuttles and evacuated to safety. Lyria felt tears prick her eyes. She had never imagined she would see hope preserved, not destroyed, in such a world. The final challenge came unexpectedly. The enemy commander, a ruthless alien warlord, launched a desperate attack directly on the human command ship. The ship rocked violently, alarms blaring. Lyria clung to a railing, watching Elias coordinate the defense, shields full. "Fire at optimal angles. We can outmaneuver them," Elias commanded. His crew responded instantly, and Lyria saw again what humans could do under pressure. They did not panic. They calculated, adapted, and executed. Lyria realized then the true meaning of Elias's earlier words about impossible choices. He had risked everything: his crew, the success of the mission, and even his life to save her and her people. That choice was not reckless. It was a deliberate act of courage guided by principle. The battle reached its peak as the enemy warlord boarded the command ship in a small assault craft. Lyria prepared herself, ready to act if necessary. But humans had anticipated this. Elias and his team engaged the warlord with skill and efficiency, capturing him without unnecessary bloodshed. When the fight ended, silence fell over the ship. Lyria looked around at the human crew, exhausted but alive. Her people were safe, the enemy defeated or captured, and the impossible task accomplished. She could hardly believe what she had witnessed. Humans had taken a desperate situation and turned it into victory through courage, intelligence, and moral conviction. Elias approached her, his expression calm but tired. "It's over, for now. Your people are safe, and the enemy has been neutralized. But there will be other challenges. You will need to prepare for them, and we will stand with you." Lyria felt a surge of gratitude and respect. I don't know how to thank you. You risked so much. Your people, all of you." Her voice faltered. "Why?" Elias smiled faintly. "Because it is the right thing to do. Because some choices are bigger than fear or loss. Because protecting life, even when the odds are impossible, is what defines us. That is why humans fight, and why I chose to fight for you." Lyria looked at him, her violet eyes filled with awe and understanding. She had survived countless dangers, faced betrayal, and endured loss. But she had never seen courage like this. Not in her people, not in the galaxy. Humans were different, exceptional in ways she had never imagined. As the ship stabilized and the rescued people began to settle aboard, Lyria approached Elias once more. "Your choice, your impossible choice, changed everything," she said softly. Elias nodded. "It did, but the work is not over. We have preserved your people, yes, but the galaxy is vast, and dangers remain. You have a chance now to rebuild, to lead, and to shape the future. I will help, as will the humans who fought beside you, for the first time in months." Lyria felt hope, not just for survival, but for the future. She realized that humans had not only saved her life, but had shown her a new way of being, a way defined by courage, morality, and determination. The impossible choice had not only saved her, it had inspired her. And as she looked at Elias, standing firm, calm, and unwavering after the battle, she understood that this human was more than an ally. He was a symbol of what humanity could achieve, even in the face of overwhelming odds. And together, they could face whatever the galaxy held next. The asteroid outpost was quiet now. The echoes of battle had faded, leaving only the hum of human machinery and the soft conversations of the rescued Valyrians. Lyria walked among them, her violet eyes filled with a mixture of awe, relief, and responsibility. She had seen her people's lives threatened, their homes destroyed, and their future uncertain, but now, thanks to Elias and the humans, there was hope. Families reunited. Children laughed cautiously, no longer haunted by fear. Elders shared stories of the past, planning ways to preserve their history. Scholars carefully examined artifacts salvaged from the ruins of Valyria Prime. Every action, every word, every smile reminded Lyria that survival was more than living, it was rebuilding, creating, and guiding. Elias watched from a distance as Lyria moved among her people. She had grown in confidence, her posture strong and her voice clear. The last princess of a fallen empire was becoming a leader again, not through fear or power, but through inspiration and example. Humans had taught her more than survival. They had shown her courage, morality, and the value of trust. He approached her quietly. "They are safe because of your people's courage and our choices," he said. "But this is just the beginning. Rebuilding a world takes time, patience, and guidance. You are no longer alone in this." Lyria turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. "I thought I would always be alone. I thought I would have to carry the weight of my people without help. But you showed me that I can trust others, that I can accept help without feeling weak." Elias nodded. "Trust is not weakness. It is strength. And your strength, combined with our support, can rebuild more than just Valyria Prime. It can inspire hope across the stars." As the days passed, Lyria worked alongside humans and Valyrians to plan the future. They repaired ships, built shelters, and coordinated supply lines. Human engineers shared knowledge of advanced technology, teaching ways to create sustainable energy, shields, and defense systems. Valyrians contributed their cultural knowledge, history, and ingenuity. The combination of human practicality and Valyrian innovation created solutions that neither could have achieved alone. During one quiet evening, Lyria and Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the asteroid's surface. The stars shone brightly, far from the fiery skies of Veliera Prime. The silence was comforting, but Lyria knew challenges remained. She turned to Elias. "Do you think we can truly rebuild my world?" she asked, her voice soft. Elias's gaze was steady. "Yes, but it will not be easy. Rebuilding is not just about structures or technology, it is about people. Hope must be nurtured, courage must be inspired, and trust must be maintained. You have already begun that work by surviving and by leading. That is more than most could do." Lyria's thoughts turned inward. She had always believed that power and survival were enough, but now she realized that leadership meant more. It meant responsibility, empathy, and the willingness to make difficult choices not for oneself, but for others. Elias had shown her that by risking everything for her. In the days that followed, she worked tirelessly. She visited each human crew member, thanking them personally. She listened to the stories of her people, learning of their losses and hopes. She mediated disputes, encouraged collaboration, and made plans for the long-term survival of her people. And through it all, Elias remained by her side not as a master or commander, but as a partner, a guide, and a friend. One morning, a fleet of human ships arrived to provide further support. Supplies, technology, and additional personnel strengthened the outpost and gave the Valyrians a sense of security they had not felt in years. Lyria watched the arrival with a sense of wonder. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable. Yet humans had proven that courage, planning, and morality could overcome even the most impossible odds. Later that day, Elias approached her with a question. "Lyria, you have seen what humans can do. You have seen the choices we make, the risks we take. What do you want for your people? And for yourself?" Lyria paused, considering the weight of the question. She had survived impossible odds, witnessed courage beyond measure, and seen the potential for hope where none seemed possible. She thought of her people, her lost home, and the new beginnings before them. "I want my people to survive," she said finally, her voice firm. "I want them to thrive, not just endure. I want them to remember who we are, what we have lost, and what we can become. And I want to build alliances, friendships, and trust with those who are willing to fight for what is right." Elias nodded approvingly. "Then we will do it together. Humans will stand by you, just as we did before. But remember, the choices you make now will shape the future. You have the strength to guide your people, and you have the courage to make the impossible choices when necessary." Lyria looked at him, her eyes shining with determination. "I have learned from you that the right choice is not always easy, but it is always worth making, and I will lead my people with that knowledge." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Lyria worked with humans to establish trade routes, communication networks, and defense systems. They trained Valyrians in new technologies while respecting their culture and traditions. The collaboration created a sense of unity and purpose. Lyria's people began to see a future that had once seemed impossible. One evening, as the asteroid outpost quieted, Lyria stood on the observation deck with Elias. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a reminder of the vast possibilities and challenges ahead. "You have changed everything," Lyria said quietly. "Not just for me, but for my people. Your choices, your courage, it has given us a second chance." Elias smiled faintly. "It was never about me alone. It was about making the right choice even when it seemed impossible. And you have shown that you can lead, inspire, and rebuild. Together, we can face whatever the galaxy holds." Lyria nodded, feeling a sense of peace she had never known. The last princess of a fallen empire was no longer alone. She had allies, friends, and a guide in Elias who had proven that courage, morality, and human ingenuity could achieve the impossible. The asteroid outpost became a hub of hope. Lyria's people rebuilt their homes, shared knowledge with humans, and strengthened defenses against future threats. Trade and communication flourished, creating a network of cooperation that stretched across nearby systems. Lyria realized that her survival, once a personal struggle, had become the foundation for a new future. The impossible choices made by humans had saved her, her people, and their culture. And in turn, her decisions now would shape generations to come. One morning, Elias approached her again. "Are you ready?" he asked. "Ready to take the next step with your people and the galaxy?" Lyria looked around at the bustling outpost, the smiling faces of her people, and the calm determination of the humans who had stood by her. She felt a deep sense of purpose and clarity. "Yes," she said firmly. "We are ready, together." Elias nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "Then let's make the impossible possible." As the asteroid outpost thrived and plans for the future unfolded, Lyria knew that the galaxy was vast and full of challenges. But she also knew that with courage, trust, and the willingness to make the right choices, no obstacle was insurmountable. The impossible had been achieved once, and it could happen again. The last alien princess had survived, not alone, but with allies who had risked everything to protect her. And as she looked at Elias, standing steadfast by her side, she understood that the true strength of humanity and of leadership was not in power or weapons, but in courage, morality, and the choices made when the odds seemed impossible. Together, they had changed the course of lives, of an empire, and perhaps even of the galaxy itself. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of promise, challenge, and hope. And for the first time in her life, Lyria smiled freely, knowing that a new beginning had arrived.